You know the scene, right? The donation bags, the friendly nurses. But what happens after you give blood? Well, that's where an incredible story of biological engineering really begins. It's a journey from one simple, generous act to a whole suite of life-saving tools. So what is the deal with that bag of blood? It doesn't just go from the donor's arm straight into a patient's. Oh no. Its journey is way more complex, and honestly, a whole lot more fascinating. It all kicks off with that one single unit. Just one. One single donation, which is about 450 milliliters of blood. It seems so simple, but what's locked inside that one bag? The potential is just absolutely immense.
That's right. One donation can help save up to 3 different people. Now you might be thinking, how is that even possible? It sounds like magic, but it's pure science. And it all begins with what I like to call the Great Separation.
So the first thing you need to do is kind of reimagine what a blood bank is. It's not just a big fridge. It's more like a super high-tech refinery that takes the raw material, your whole blood, and meticulously breaks it down into its most powerful parts. You see, in modern medicine, we actually almost never transfuse whole blood anymore, and that's a huge deal. Instead of giving a patient everything, we can zero in on exactly what they need, which is so much safer and more effective. Blood is this amazing mixture. You've got the liquid plasma, making up more than half of it. You've got the oxygen-carrying red blood cells, and then there's that tiny but mighty 1% layer called the buffy coat, which holds our white blood cells and platelets.
And the secret sauce here, the key to unlocking all these different parts, is a process called centrifugation. Now, it sounds really complicated, but the idea behind it is beautifully simple. It's all about spinning.
Okay, so how does this spinning actually work? It's pretty cool. First up, the bag gets a gentle, soft spin. This lets the heaviest parts, those red blood cells, settle down at the bottom. What's left floating on top is called platelet-rich plasma. So we carefully separate that out. Then, that plasma gets a second, much faster, hard spin. This forces the platelets down into a tiny, powerful little concentrate, leaving the pure liquid plasma behind. And just like that, from one single bag, we've got 3 incredibly valuable products.
So let's talk about our first product. It's the one everybody recognizes, the red blood cells. You can think of these as the body's ultimate emergency oxygen delivery service, the rescue squad.
We call them packed red blood cells, or PRBCs. So think about a patient who's anemic after a big surgery or an accident, and they just can't get enough oxygen to their vital tissues. This is exactly what they need. And the impact, it's immediate. Just one of these units can boost a patient's hemoglobin by a full gram per deciliter. That's a really big deal.
But here's the catch, right? These cells are alive, so keeping them viable is a huge challenge. By adding different nutrient and anticoagulant solutions right into the bag, we can actually extend their shelf life from 35 all the way up to 42 days. And in the world of medicine, that extra week is a critical window to save a life.
But you know, a one-size-fits-all approach just doesn't cut it anymore. Modern medicine is all about precision. Sometimes just giving a patient red blood cells isn't the full story. We actually have to customize the product to avoid serious complications.
And this customization is key. So, for example, if a patient has severe allergic reactions, what do? Well, we use washed PRBCs to get rid of the plasma proteins. For someone who spikes a fever with every transfusion, we can filter out the white cells to create leukoreduced PRBCs. And for a really immunocompromised patient, we use irradiated PRBCs to zap any stray immune cells and prevent a really dangerous reaction. It is truly targeted precision medicine.
All right, next up is the component that was left over after that second spin, plasma. It might just look like yellowish water, but trust me, there's a very good reason they call this stuff liquid gold. Okay, so yeah, it's mostly water, about 90%. But that other 10%, that's where the magic is. It is jam-packed with vital proteins, immunoglobulins, and most critically, coagulation factors, all the little substances that help our blood clot when we get hurt. And just like we refined whole blood, we can take this liquid gold and refine it even further to create super concentrated treatments for some very specific problems. One of the most incredible things we can get from it is something called cryoprecipitate. By carefully freezing and then thawing the plasma, we can isolate this incredible concentration of key clotting factors. For patients with bleeding disorders like hemophilia A, or for someone whose fibrinogen levels are dangerously low, this super concentrated cocktail is a total lifeline. So we've got our oxygen carriers and the factors that help form a strong, stable clot. But what about the very first step in plugging a leak? Well, for that, we need our third major component,
Platelets. These aren't even full cells. They're these tiny little fragments that literally rush to the scene of an injury, sticking together to form an initial plug. For patients going through chemo or those with a condition called thrombocytopenia, their platelet count can drop to dangerous levels. A transfusion of these little lifesavers can be the one thing that prevents a catastrophic bleed.
You know, this whole idea of taking something biological, breaking it down, and using its components to heal, well, it's not just limited to blood. It's actually part of a much bigger principle in medicine. So let's take a quick look at another category of treatments called glandular products.
So the big difference here is pretty simple. It's all about where they come from. The blood products we've been talking about, they all come from generous human donors. Glandular products, on the other hand, are often derived from animal sources, like pigs or cows, or sometimes they're even created from scratch in a lab using biotechnology.
The idea is pretty genius, right? We know that glands in the body produce these super powerful substances that regulate everything. So by extracting or synthesizing them, we can create therapies for all sorts of conditions where a person's body just isn't making enough of its own.
And the uses for these are all over the place. For instance, pancreatic extracts can help people as a digestive aid. Thyroid products are an absolute cornerstone for treating hypothyroidism, which is a super common condition. And things like adrenal extracts can be used to help the body manage stress and inflammatory diseases. It's a different source, but it's the same core idea, using biology to heal biology.
So when you step back and look at the whole journey, it's just incredible, isn't it? That one simple act of donating blood kicks off this whole sophisticated scientific process, creating an entire toolkit for doctors, from red cells that carry oxygen to platelets that plug leaks and plasma that provides the critical clotting factors.
It really shows you the insane potential that's just flowing through our own veins, waiting to be understood and harnessed to help others. It really makes you wonder, as our understanding of the human body gets deeper and deeper, what other life-saving secrets are we going to unlock next?